Hi, it's Jack, and this is the podcast version of this episode. If you want to read the words as they're being analysed, then if you're on Spotify, you can become a subscriber of this channel or head over to the YouTube channel. And on both platforms, you can also sign up to get exclusive episodes and early access to the regular weekly episodes too. The Donna Adelson trial concluded this week, and the verdict is in.
At this time, I will publish the verdict. We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself.
Now, Donna did not take the stand, but her defence witnesses did. And their words mattered, and in this episode I'll show you how repeated narratives, evasions, carefully crafted statements from them may have sealed Donna's fate, and how the jury could not have failed to notice the patterns in their statements. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're new to this, what I do here is different from anywhere else. I strip away everything apart from the words that are said by the people at the centre of the story, and then I use my process of statement investigation to give you the key to seeing deception, where the truth is, and also the motivations of the person talking. It's a process that I use with investigators, corporate clients, and the media to get a deep understanding of what is going on. So the Donna Adelson trial. Convicted Donna has been of her involvement in the murder of Dan Markel. Now, this is week 2 of the trial. I've been doing daily updates. There is a playlist for that if you want to catch up with them and see the breakdowns of the key evidence given in court each day during the trial. And each week I was doing a deep dive, not a daily deep dive, that'll be a lot of work, doing a deep dive into some of the most important testimony. This week it is Donna's defence week, and she brought many people on the stand to testify. Well, I'm sure she thought they'd be testifying on her behalf, but I'm not so sure they did, as we're going to see in this episode. Because I want you to think like the jury. You see, we all have a sixth sense about so many things. It's our gut instinct, whatever you want to call it. And I believe some of that is triggered by the words we hear and the patterns that we see in the words that we hear. And one of the things I think that we work with is this feeling of satisfaction. When we hear someone talking, are we satisfied by the answer? Are we satisfied by what they said? Or does it leave little alarm bells going off and questions in our mind? Because I think when the jury were listening to a lot of the people that Donna nominated to talk on her behalf, I think those alarm bells, that sixth sense would be going off with the jury, and we'll look at why that is. So they may not have realised it, but they may not have picked up on the patterns as we go through, and the repeated patterns, it would have sunk in further and further. So we're going to look at some of the defence witnesses. The other thing I want you to do as we're going through this, see if you can spot the theme that I spot. In all the witnesses we're going to look at, there is a common theme in everything that not in everything they talk about. There's a common theme though that in everyone that we're going to hear from. So let's start off with one of the defence witnesses. This is Linda Bailey. She's a family attorney and she is familiar with the case that was brought in the divorce of Wendi Adelson, Donna's daughter, and Dan Markel, the murder victim, and also Wendy's ex-husband. So let's listen to some of the cross-examination from Linda Bailey.
Do you agree that a case, as a lawyer, might be routine, whereas to the parties it's the most important thing in the world?
To some degree. That's one reason I called Kristen, is Ms. Adamson, in particular, of the lawyers in our community of the family law bar, is extremely measured and calm, and I find that when I litigate against her, we reach resolutions, that people stay measured and calm, and we get things done. She's not one of the other lawyers in town who may stir cases up or play on those emotions. So our job as lawyers is to explain to our clients when we get emotion. If I get something, for example, that, although I've never had something similar to what Mr. Markel would file, the immediate response is to call your client and go, I know you're going to read this at first glance, so it's going to seem messy. But there's no legal basis for this, so don't worry. And my understanding is that is what she communicated to Wendi.
Right, so there is the question to Linda. Do you agree that a case as a lawyer might be routine, whereas to the parties it's the most important thing in the world? And the first thing that she does is agree a bit. She says, to some degree. And then the rest of it is extra, because this is a question that really requires a very short answer. Yes, I do. No, I don't. However, she wants to talk more now. When people talk extra, it's always very revealing. It shows what's in their head. It shows maybe what they want to get across, or maybe it's something they feel safe talking about. It avoids another question being asked. The longer you can talk in court, the less chance there is of being asked another question. So maybe that is what is going on here. Now, she says, to some degree, and then there's the extra. That's one of the reasons I called Kristen, is Miss Adelson in particular, of the lawyers in our community of the family law bar, is extremely measured and calm. And I find that when I litigate against her, we reach resolutions that people stay measured and calm, and we get things done. She's not one of the other lawyers in town who may stir up cases or play on those emotions. So what we have here is an agreement there that this might be the most important thing in the world. Yeah, to some degree. She talks about the other lawyers who stir up emotions and how she avoids those lawyers. It's all extra. It's all in agreement with the question. She could have just said yes, but instead she tells us why she deals with Kristen Adelson for some reason. Comfort, safety, or is it to get across how nice and reasonable these people are, these lawyers are, that we're dealing with the divorce? And then she continues. More extra. And she says, so. And it's not beginning an answer with so, but this is an explanation that we're getting. She's going to give us an explanation. So I think really here, she's in a either comfortable zone and she wants to do some explaining, because explaining who you are or what you're about or what goes on, that's easier than sitting facing another question on cross-examination, especially during a murder trial, especially when you're on the defence witness list. So our job as lawyers is to explain to our clients when we get emotion. Now, this is really strange. At first glance, you might not notice it, or at first listen, you might not notice it, but just let's go through it. If I get something, for example, although I've never had something similar to what Mr. Markel would file, the immediate response is to call your client and go, I know you're going to read this at first glance. What? So if I get something, although I never have had something, so it should stop there because you've never had anything like this happen. But then you say, if I get this thing that I never get, then what I do is call my client. Huh? Is this made up? Is this constructed? Did this happen? I'll tell you what I think's going on here. She is on a mission to say that Dan Markel, by the way, remember this guy's the murder victim, she is on a mission to make him sound as unreasonable as possible. Why? Because Donna's response to Dan Markel and some of the things around the divorce was angry, and this is explaining away Donna's anger. I believe this is what she's doing. She's saying Donna's anger was reasonable because Dan Markel was not reasonable. Nice strategy, huh? So this thing, if I get something, even though I've never had something, if I did get the thing I never had, what I normally do is, what? I think this is all, and this is not true. This is just to slip in the unreasonable behaviour of Dan Markel. So it's going to seem messy, but there's no legal basis for this, so don't worry. And my understanding is that was what was communicated to Wendi. So in that question and answer, she talks about how she answers in general. Then when she says, when she gets something like Dan filed, even though Dan has never filed it, she's just on one really there. So she gives limited agreement to the point, but then she only talks about the point and how it can be a highly charged, a very important thing for the people involved. I think she had to hit a point in the script that she had decided that she was going to deliver for whatever reason, whatever motivation she wants to testify on behalf of Donna and kind of say that Dan was a really annoying person. And the only way to do that is to talk about what she does normally in this thing that she never ever has experienced. And it's a general question where she is asked in general about divorces, and she answers more specifically about the divorce of Wendi and Dan. That's something we don't see a lot. Quite often we see a specific question being asked and someone gives a general answer. So what time did you get up in the morning? I usually got up between 6 and past. You didn't answer the question specifically, you talked in general. Here, she's asked in general about divorces, but she answers and moves it to a specific about the divorce between Wendi and Dan. I think because she's got to hit those scripts, she's got to talk about this divorce. That is why she is there. So that's the first thing we're going to see from Linda. Now, coming up later in this episode, Donna's best friend, Anne Cunningham, took the stand, and she's very, very similar to Linda with the scripts. Here's another one from Linda.
And when you communicate these things to your clients, hey, this is no big deal, this is no problem, this is a bunch of gibberish, do they always accept that?
Well, that's not the way I would present it, but...
Do they ever get upset about the gibberish in the pleadings, the offensive materials in the pleadings, regardless of whether or not it's going to impact their chance of success in court, it can be emotionally charged, can it?
Well, I would say annoying more than emotionally charged.
You would not say that divorce and child custody issues are emotionally charged?
They can be, but in this case, they weren't.
They weren't? How do you know?
From the pleadings, because I don't have 10,000 pages in front of me.
You're not in the mind of the people whose lives are impacted by these pleadings. It's not just about pieces of paper and a binder, is it?
I don't think that's what I said.
People's lives are impacted by the decisions that go on in court, which for you are routine. Would you agree?
In this instance, they reached agreement on all issues, so they had complete control of what was coming out of the court.
Ma'am, could you please answer my question? Are people's lives impacted in drastic ways by routine matters that we see in court as lawyers?
People's lives change after divorce, certainly.
How do you think all this is playing with the jury? Is it setting off that sixth sense? Are the answers, are what she's saying satisfying? When you communicate these things to clients, hey, this is no big deal, this is no problem, this is a bunch of gibberish, do they always accept that? And the answer starts with the word, well. That means I'm not going to answer your question. It's a siren, it's an alarm, it's an alert. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to give an explanation. I'm going to say something longer. I'm going to give you some reasons, or I'm going to argue with your question. Well, that's not the way I would present it, but... And she tries again. Do they ever get upset about the gibberish in the pleadings, the offensive materials in the pleadings, regardless of whether or not it's going to impact their chance of success in court? It can be emotionally charged, can't it? And then the response comes, I would say annoying more than emotionally charged. So she finally comes to some sort of answer, but she does kind of argue again with it, which is fine if that's her opinion. But you'll notice that it's, I would say annoying more than emotionally charged. So she's not denying it's emotionally charged. So the very first question, these things can be emotionally charged. There can be emotionally charged people here or situations here. Would have been a straightforward answer, but it's taken her a long time to get here. I would say annoying more than emotionally charged, but more than does not rule out the fact it can be emotionally charged. You would not say that divorce and child custody issues are emotionally charged, she's asked. And the response from Linda is they can be, but in this case, they weren't. So they can be, but, and when we say something with a but in it, what comes after the but is always more important. It's always a higher priority to the person talking. In this case, they weren't, is what she says. So once again, we've got this move to the specific. She's been asked questions in general about divorce cases, but she cannot wait to talk about the Dan Markel, Wendi Adelson divorce case and how this case was calm, placid, sedate, serene. That's the impression that she wants to give us. So she has no time for talking about things being emotionally charged or people being difficult in divorces, because that's not the script and message that she wants to convey on behalf of herself. Donna, I don't know. They can be emotionally charged, but in this case, they weren't. They weren't, asks the prosecutor. How do you know? From the pleadings, because I don't have 10,000 pages in front of me. It's put to her, you're not in the mind of the people whose lives are impacted by these pleadings. It's not just about the piece of paper in a binder, is it? And she says, I don't think that's what I said. So again, no desire to give a full and helpful answer. Do you think that's going down well with the jury? Even if they don't see specifically the tactics that I'm pointing out here. And I've not done this in real time. I did watch it in real time, but since then I've had the transcripts and I've pored over it and looked at words and looked at phrases, looked at concepts, gone back to the beginning and done it again. I've done all that so I can point this out to you. The jury haven't. They're watching it in real time, but they will not be satisfied by these answers. They just will not sink in and hit in with them. I don't think that's what I said. It's also, it's not very straightforward. It's leaving some, that could be what I said. Georgia, the prosecutor, says people's lives are impacted by the decisions that go on in court, which for you are routine. Would you agree? And once more, in this instance, they reached an agreement on all issues. So once more, she does not want to talk in general. She wants to just go here and say how calm and placid this was. In this instance, they reached agreement on all issues. Now, They did reach agreement on all issues as far as I know, but that doesn't mean that it was not emotionally charged. It does not mean there was not a lot of consternation or anger or anything like that, because that could have all happened in between. Here's where we want to be, here's the agreement we want to get to, and boomf. But she's not talking about any of that at all. She just wants to talk about the fact that they reached an agreement. In this instance, again, she's been asked about the general situation and she just wants to keep talking about this case. They had complete control of what was coming out of court. The extra is always telling. She wants to say they had complete control out of what was coming out in court. She wasn't asked anything about that, but that's the message that she wants to give. She wants to, and I think she's prepared to do this, and she has worked on what the story is. She wants to come away thinking, I told them that this divorce ended in agreement, therefore there was no emotionally charged people around this. There was no anger involved in the whole process, because if I just focus on this agreement that was reached, all of the other stuff I can make go away. The prosecutor realises the question has not been answered. Ma'am, would you please answer my question? Are people's lives impacted in drastic ways by routine matters that we see in court as lawyers? And she says, people's lives change after divorce, certainly. So she's taken the change in drastic ways by routine matters we see in court as lawyers to people's lives change after divorce. Just change, not she's taken the drasticness out again. She just wants to make this all seem normal, and nothing much has happened. So here, she wants to keep bringing it back to Dan and Wendi's divorce just all the time. That's what she wants to talk about. She does not want to talk about divorce, family law in general, and she wants to avoid any sense that it could have been emotionally charged. Now, why would that be? Why? Because what's in it for her for saying that this was not emotionally charged at points? That only plays well for Donna. It doesn't particularly seem to play well for her. She could just admit what had happened or what she'd seen, but she really wants to say, this wasn't emotionally charged. No. This wasn't emotionally charged, because she avoids every single aspect of the question that could lead to that. And if you think she's avoiding now, she's going to be asked a question about the fact that Wendi and Donna referred to Dan Markel as Jibbers. Now, earlier in her testimony, Linda had said Jibbers was a name used because he speaks gibberish. Anyone who watched more of the trial will know that that is not the case.
Jibbers, according to the evidence in this case, means Jew in boots. It's not a flattering term by that definition or by your definition of someone that speaks gibberish. Can we agree it's not a flattering term?
No, it's probably not flattering, but I've seen far, far worse.
You've seen worse.
I have.
If Mr. Markel wasn't paying by the deadline, isn't that something that would be potentially upsetting to the parties or their family members?
I don't know how upsetting $80,000 would be. I don't know.
$80,000 is a lot of money, isn't it, Miss Bailey?
It depends on who you are.
Exactly. So we'd have...
It's a lot of money. Let's just agree on that. It's a lot of money. Jibbers, according to the evidence in this case, means Jew in boots. It's not a flattering term by that definition, or even by your definition of someone that speaks gibberish. Can we agree it's not a flattering term? She says, no, it's probably not flattery, but I've seen far, far worse. No, it's probably not flattery. I mean, really? Calling someone a Jew in boots, or even someone that speaks gibberish, is definitely not flattery. So why are you trying to turn this down and turn the severity of this down? Once again, that all works in Donna's favour, doesn't it? It doesn't work in your favour. It just seems to be that you wanted to make sure that things are framed in Donna's favour. No, it's probably not flattery, but I've seen far, far worse. It's put to her, you've seen worse? And she says, I have. Now, I believe that. I have is one of the simplest answers that she's given. It directly addresses the question. It's very short, so she's not going extra or trying to persuade us or anything like that. I do believe she has seen worse names used than Jibbers. But where was this? You know, when she was being asked about emotionally destructive cases and emotionally charged cases, you know, names worse than Jibbers that she's seen being used. She wasn't bothering mentioning them now, but when it becomes favourable to Donna to mention the fact that far worse goes on, then she's quite willing to tell us that far worse goes on in divorce cases. If Mr. Markel wasn't paying by the deadline, isn't that something you would be potentially upsetting to the parties or family members? And then again, she has to avoid any any concept or any idea that upset was involved here. I don't know how upsetting $80,000 would be. I don't know. I mean, someone's not paying you 80 grand. It's going to be a little bit upsetting. 80 grand is a lot of money, isn't it, Miss Bailey? It depends on who you are, is what she says. So she cannot bring herself to say that the family members were not upset about this. The truth will always leak out. She just wants to avoid it and say, I don't know how upsetting it would be. You know, she doesn't say, hey, by the way, I don't know how upset they were, or they were not upset by that. I'm talking about the Wendi and Donna Adelson. She just says, I don't know how that would be. So that's in the future as well. So she's not talking about that precise thing. I can surmise from that they were upset about this £80,000 not being playing, and she wants to hide it. So here, the attempt to move away and deflect from any sign of update continues from her. I mean, overall, what is someone avoiding? That's what to look at. What are they avoiding? Rather than speaking directly to it, she wants to avoid any talk of upset, emotional upset, or anything like that. It's very important to her to avoid all of this. She was on a mission to say that this divorce was all plain sailing and there was no upset going down. Listen, the bestie is coming up. Anne Cunningham is on the stand next. By the way, don't tell anyone else, just between me and you, the next full episode of Never a Truer Word will look at Charlie Adelson's testimony in his trial. And after that, we're doing some work on pulling together every single version of the story of the drive to Trescott that Wendi Adelson has told in court and police interviews. Don't tell anyone. Those are the things we're working on here at Never a Truer Word. Now listen, do you ever feel like you're not being told the full story? Familiar? Yeah, well, look, you're right. It's not just happening in court with defence witnesses. It's happening all around us all the time. And I am here to giving you the key to seeing deeper, because this is about hearing the world with new ears, and I'm on a mission to share this with as many people as possible. So listen, if you want to unlock the secret yourself, subscribe to this channel or follow it and join in the movement. There is a whole treasure trove of archives to be discovered as well, including a lot on the Adelsons and a lot on court trials if you're interested in those things. And do you know someone who needs this? Someone who deserves to hear the truth. If you hit the like button, this helps this content get out to more people. If you hit the share button, you're sharing it with people who may need this. It's a wonderful gift to give, so do pass it on. And every single click, every single share fuels the fire, because it allows me to dig deeper into people like the Adelsons, analyse further, and bring this life-changing skill to even more people. I do regularly hear from grateful audience members who've navigated tricky situations in their life using the listening skills that they've learned on this channel. So your like, your share, your recommendation could help someone like that. It is a great gift to give. Right, let's listen to the best friend now of Wendi Adelson, who's testifying on her behalf. It's a woman called Anne Cunningham.
Now, you indicated that you would talk on the phone with Miss Adelson. Did you use home phones to do that during some of the period of time?
Pardon me, I'm sorry?
Home phones, like landlines?
Sometimes.
Okay. Did you use cell phones?
Many times.
Okay. Did you travel with Harvey and Donna Adelson?
Many times.
Okay. And as part of your travel, did you go overseas?
Yes.
And in your travel overseas, did you ever use any of the applications that you can put on your phone?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall which applications you all used?
WhatsApp and Viber.
And what was the purpose of using those?
Because you didn't get charged, for, and also to keep in communication. If we were on a cruise or on a land trip, where are you? When are we meeting? Because they were free.
Okay.
It was easy.
So while you were overseas, instead of having to pay increased rates on your cellular plan from the United States, you could use this app for free?
Yes.
Okay. Did you use those apps with Mrs. Adelson to hide any information from law enforcement, like encrypted, so that they wouldn't know what was going on?
No.
Okay.
Okay, by the way, I asked you at the beginning of the episode, could you spot a theme developing, something that was spoken about in all the testimonies? Any ideas? I'll tell you at the end of the episode. Now, this is a bit of scene setting, really. You indicated you would talk on the phone with Miss Adelson. Did you use home phones to do that during some of the period of time? And Anne says, pardon me, I'm sorry. Now, look, we've only got one instance of this. This could be her thinking, I need to buy some thinking time here. What story was it that I'm prepared to tell? Or what is the truth here in this instance? Or it could be genuine. She did not catch the question and she's saying, pardon me, I'm sorry. Home phones like landlines. She says, sometimes. Did you use cell phones? Many times, she says. So let's just compare the sometimes. Sometimes they used landlines. Many times they used cell phones. I think they probably used cell phones to speak to each other more than landlines. It's there in their words. Cell phones, many times. Home phones and landlines, sometimes. Nothing guilty about that, by the way. Just an observation that you can tell from the words how they contacted each other. Did you travel with Harvey and Donna Adelson? Many times. As part of your travel, did you go overseas? Yes. And in your travel overseas, did you use any of these applications that you can put in your phone? She says, yes. Interesting. She seems ready to say yes. I mean, rewind and have another look at it. She seems ready to answer that question before the question's finished. In your travel overseas, did you use any of these? She's about to say yes before she knows what the question is. Did you know that question was coming? Is this all prepared for? Anyway, she says yes. And these are yes, yes, yes answers. They're all quite believable. I'm guessing she did use phones like that. She did go overseas and travel many times with Harvey and Donna Adelson. And do you recall which applications you all used? She says WhatsApp and Viber. WhatsApp and Viber. She's listing something there. WhatsApp and Viber, which suggests they used WhatsApp most. That's the one she's most used to, which is why it's first in the list. And Viber second, the one that they used least often. Again, I'm only pointing out things that I notice. I'm not saying this implies any sort of innocence or guilt there. It's just how you can tell things from the way that people order words. And what was the purpose of using those? Because you didn't get charged, and also to keep in communication. If you were on a cruise or a land trip, where are you? Where are you? Where are you meeting? Just because they were free. Got that word just there. Just because they were free. Was there anything more to it? Because just tends to be a word to just minimize. Something small's happening. Don't pay any attention to it. It's just because they were free. There's no more to this. Was there more to it? Did they use Viber and WhatsApp for any other reason than they were free? Okay, so it was easy. So while you were overseas, instead of having to pay increased rates on your cellular plan for the United States, I managed to say cellular better than the attorney there, you could use this app for free. I know I can't talk about how anyone talks. It's very rude of me. Yes, says Anne. Did you use those apps with Mrs. Adelson to hide any information from law enforcement, like encrypted, so that they didn't know what was going on? And she says no. So just from this bit at all, this is a bit of background and scene setting. Remember those details about the apps and why the apps were used. It's going to become relevant later as we hear more from Donna Adelson's best friend, supposedly talking in her defense.
I want to talk to you, I'll lead you forward to the date that Danny Markel was murdered. That was July the 18th of 2014. Do you recall speaking to Mrs. Adelson on that date?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and can you explain to us how you were contacted and the nature of the conversation?
I was called, and Donna was quite hysterical.
Okay.
And she said to me, Danny's been shot.
While she was upset, what did she indicate to you?
She told me that Danny had been shot and that they were going to Tallahassee, and that she was very concerned and worried about Wendi and the boys, whether they were in danger.
Okay.
Because she did not know who had shot him.
Okay. And did she indicate whether she was concerned about Danny and him being in the hospital?
Absolutely.
Okay.
A bonus absolutely at the end there for regular people here. I broke this whole thing down in one of the daily episodes that I did, so I'm not going to go into this one in too much detail, just to point out a couple of things that I noticed. Do you recall speaking with Mrs. Adelson on that date, which was the date that Dan Markel was shot? She says, yes, I do. Quite a truthful answer on the surface of it, although with Anne, we've already seen, does she have some answers prepared already? Is she willing to say yes, no, quite easily to things? Then she's asked the question of, can you explain to us how you were contacted and the nature of that conversation? Now, I picked out here, I was called, is what she said. Not Donna called me, I was called. Now, it strikes me, if you had a list of talking points, or here are how things were, here's in your memory, in your mental list, here's how to say things happened, even though they didn't happen. I was called would be one, because we wouldn't normally say, I spoke to my best friend, I was called. No, we'd say she called me, they called me, whatever it is we'd say. I was called stood out to me, thinking, did this call really happen? And then further on in there, when it's asked, indicate the nature of the call, she goes a little bit extra. She says that Donna phone said that Dan had been shot. She was very worried about the boys. And then she says, because she did not know who had shot him. Now, Donna's not investigating the crime here. The police don't know who has done it, or they don't know. No one knows. But no, what she doesn't want is to get across this. No one knew who shot Dan at this point. It's important to Anne to say it was Donna who did not know anything after Dan Markel was shot. She did not know who had shot him. It came to me with that I was called, with that she did not know who had shot him. There was a purpose to this answer. And the purpose to this answer was that a phone call happened. I was called. That may not have happened. And to say Donna knew nothing, which is potentially the truth. But the way she phrased it, she did not know nothing, tells me that she wanted everyone to know Donna knew nothing, not no one knew anything at the time. However, there was a problem with this because one of the Nick's witnesses was a phone call investigator, and there was no call to Anne on the night of Dan Markel's murder from Donna in her call logs on her phone. Now, that's a problem for Anne because she said this call happened. So Anne was summoned back onto the stand to discuss this matter.
And returned to the courthouse?
Yes.
To tell us what? That you used Viber or WhatsApp to make
Yes.
that phone call?
Yes.
So it wasn't a regular phone call?
Correct.
Okay, so you misspoke earlier or it just wasn't clear?
No, I said she called me.
Okay, and she called you and made a regular phone call on June 23rd, the month before the murder, right?
I don't recall many. She made many phone calls.
And she called you on a regular line on July 20th, just 2 days after the murder. Do you recall that?
If you say so.
Okay, so you have no reason to contest that you spoke with her via regular phone call June 23rd, July 20th, and July 21st.
If it's on the record, yes.
But you're saying it was a WhatsApp or a Viber on the 18th?
Yes, they were in the car, and they often called on those apps in the car.
Would it surprise you to learn that WhatsApp didn't offer voice calls until March of 2015?
Then it was on Viber.
Must have been Viber, huh? Nothing further.
Okay then, so what have we got here? Let's go to the crux of all of that. You're saying it was a WhatsApp or a Viber on the 18th. And she says yes. Well, that's what she's saying, so she's agreeing with that, but she's then goes extra and has to do some explaining. She could just say yes, she could just leave it there, but she has to explain why this is a normal thing, why, this is something that I did not question. In fact, it's so regular, I didn't bring it up when I was testifying. However, the words that Anne uses, they're very interesting there. Yes, they were in the car, and they often called on those apps on this in the car. So she gets very stuttery, as if, she's feeling a bit of stress here. But after the yes, they were in the car. They often called on those apps in the car. Now, what is going on there? Because previously these apps were being used abroad because it was free. All of a sudden, they were being used absolutely everywhere. She didn't mention any of this when she was asked about the use of calls. Oh, we used them all the time, even when we were not abroad. It was how we communicated sometimes. Or when we were on the move, we used these apps. She didn't mention any of that there, but all of a sudden, they often called on those apps. Now, she doesn't actually say they called on that app those nights. And it's also they. It's they. They were in the car. They often called on those apps. So the nature of the call earlier, when she was asked, she did not mention they. She didn't mention that this was an en masse phone call, that this was, I guess, Harvey and Donna doing it. She said, she told me that Danny had been shot and they were going to Tallahassee. Now, those are words that you could use if you were on your way to Tallahassee. We're going to Tallahassee. But I also think that might be said slightly differently. They called me from the car. They told me Danny had been shot and that they were on their way to Tallahassee or en route to Tallahassee or anything like that. It doesn't quite match up here because she didn't mention the car. She didn't mention they earlier. All of a sudden, they were in the car. They often called on those apps in the car. Would it surprise you to learn that WhatsApp didn't offer voice calls until March of 2015? Then it was on Viber. Thank you so much, Anne. I mean, let's take some more from her.
You were best friends with her?
Yes.
Okay. And she would call and vent to you about Danny Markel?
Sometimes.
All right. And did she ever call him names?
Not to my knowledge, not to me.
Did she share with you that she was planning to offer a bribe to Mr. Markel to facilitate relocation?
I don't recall.
Did she talk to you about plans to threaten or to convert the children to Christianity in order to strong-arm Mr. Markel?
She mentioned that she had said that, and she said that was so foolish of me.
Okay. When did she say that?
I don't know whether we were together or on a phone call. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Anne. She has asked you were best friends with her, and she says yes. It's a yes, no question, and she gives that one-word answer, yes. An indication that she's being truthful here. Okay, it's no great shakes to say that her best friend is her best friend. However, that just shows when she doesn't answer a yes, no question with a yes or no, there's more going on for her. She's on a bit of a mission. Okay, and she would call you and vent to you about Danny Markel. Sometimes, says Anne, she's downplaying that there. I don't think the intent of the question, or any reasonable person would think that the intent of the question was all the time Donna would be on the phone ranting and venting about Danny Markel, but she feels the need to soften it, turn down the severity in Donna's favour a lot. So she says sometimes. Right, and did she ever call him names? That means, did she ever call him names on these calls? And she says, not to my knowledge, not to me. I think that she realises she slipped up slightly there. And what happened is that she said, not to my knowledge, which is not an appropriate answer to did she ever call him names, in brackets, because we're talking about these phone calls when Donna was venting about Dan Markel. Not to my knowledge. I think she really meant, I don't remember there, which is one of those really handy things to use in court. She realises she can't use that because she said, not to my knowledge, it's the wrong thing. She says, not to me. But notice that both not to my knowledge and not to me mean it's very open in Anne's head and thoughts that Donna could have called Dan Markel names, because she says, not to my knowledge, it could have happened, it just wasn't to my knowledge, and not to me, she could have done it to someone else. So she's not really helping here at all. She's just saying, I don't know anything about it, but she's not talking in the wider picture. Did she share with you that she was planning to offer a bribe to Mr. Markel to facilitate relocation? Now Anne plays the I don't recall card there, a very good one to use. And then she's asked, did she talk to you about plans to threaten or to convert the children to Christianity in order to strong-arm Mr. Markel? She mentioned that she had said that, and she said that was so foolish of her. So she's gone a little bit extra there. She could have just said, she mentioned that she said that, or yes, she did talk to me about that. Just keep it nice and closed and clamped down. But Anne goes extra here because not only does she agree that, yeah, she said that, but also, in Donna's favour, we all need to be nice to Donna, she said, that was so foolish of me. So she's gone extra. Just like the family lawyer we saw earlier, when she's gone extra, this defence witness is always in Donna's favour. And then Anne is asked, okay, when did she say that? And she says, I don't know, I'm not sure. We were together, or I'm not sure whether we were together on a phone call. I'm not sure. So I don't know whether we were together or on a phone call. I'm not sure. She was asked about when. When did she say that? Timing. That's what when requires as a question. And Anne goes to situation. I don't know if we were together or on a phone call. I'm not sure. So she, for some reason, doesn't want to say the when, during the divorce proceedings, maybe. I don't know. We were together or on a phone call. I'm not sure. But Anne, they're in court on a real mission. No, the mission is not to answer the questions. The mission is to say things that are positive about Donna. Now, if you're seeing this part, then you are getting the podcast of Never a Truer Word. This is exclusive to you, this next chunk of analysis. Listen, if you're into your podcast, then you can subscribe on Spotify to Never a Truer Word, which means you'll get yourself bonus episodes that are not available to anyone else. You'll also get yourself early access to the weekly deep dive episodes like this one. So if you want to get them, then become a subscriber to the podcast on Spotify. By the way, if you are a podcast person and you're a member of a legal team and you're thinking, I could be doing with some of this on something that I'm working on, do get in touch. There's a link in the description for this. I have limited slots for 2025. Enough sales messages. Let's get on to your exclusive podcast analysis. It's another little bit of Anne talking about extortion.
Did she ever tell you that she was being extorted in reference to Mr. Markel's murder?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, and when you say eventually, when did she tell you that?
We were on a trip to Japan together.
Okay, when was the trip to Japan?
We took so many trips. I'm not exactly sure of the year.
Was it between the murder and the first arrests?
I don't recall.
Okay. And when she told you that she was being extorted, then naturally you learned that she knew who had killed Dan Markel.
No.
Obviously, it's the people that are extorting her, right?
She didn't know what. Are you talking about? Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
She was forced to make payments to the people that killed
Yes.
Dan Markel.
Yes.
That's what the checks were all about, right?
I don't know about the checks.
Well, when she told you she was being extorted, if it wasn't about the checks, how was she being extorted?
She was. I'm confusing that with the bump. I believe that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine.
Prior to the bump, you knew that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine.
No, I believe it was afterwards.
After the bump, you learned that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine.
I'm not sure of the timeline.
Okay. And when you learned that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine, you learned that your friend, your best friend, Donna Adelson, was also being forced to write these checks as payment to the killers that were extorting.
I don't recall.
The good old I don't recall there from Anne again. Did she ever tell you she was being extorted in reference to Mr. Markel's murder? And Anne says, eventually, yes, which suggests that she is aware that some time had passed between the extortion at least starting and when she was told. Eventually, yes. Okay, and when you say eventually, when did she tell you that? And once more, Anne is asked a question about when and goes to the place, the situation, rather than the when. We were on a trip to Japan together. Okay, when was that trip to Japan? She says again, we took so many trips, I'm not exactly sure of the year. She just does not want to be tied down to any timeline specifically here, so she's not going to give it up. But notice she says, I'm not exactly sure of the year. No, I don't know the year, just I'm not exactly sure of the year, which means you could give some sort of guess. I think we went to Japan late noughties, I don't know, whatever it was that she wants to say, just she doesn't want to be tied down to a timeline there. Was it between the murder and the first arrests? I don't recall that convenient answer. And when she told you she was being extorted, then naturally you learned that she knew who had killed Dan Markel. No, says Anne. Obviously it's the people who are extorting her, right? And she says she didn't know. What are you talking about? Yeah, I guess I don't know. Complete confusion. She is thrown by this question. She does not, and we've seen, she seems to have some answers ready, sometimes answering before the question is finished. She seems to have some answers ready. She didn't know. What are you talking about? Yeah, I guess I don't know. She is confused by this question, but determined to get an answer out. She was forced to make payments to the people that killed Dan Markel, and Anne agrees with that point. She says yes. Very simply, she says yes. She, Donna, was forced to make payments to the people, so multiple people, that killed Dan Markel. Yes, says Anne. That's what the checks were all about, right? I don't know about the checks. Convenient answer again. Well, when she told you she was being extorted, if it wasn't about the checks, how was she being extorted? And Anne changes track entirely. I'm confusing that with the bump, I believe, that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine. Well, wait a minute. She was being forced to make payments, extortion. She, Donna, was being forced to make payments to the people that killed Dan Markel, yes. And you are confusing that with Charlie being extorted by one person, Catherine. Big confusion, because you agreed earlier, Anne, that yes, she was being extorted by the people that killed Dan Markel. Prior to the bump, you knew that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine, she's asked. She says, no, I believe it was afterwards. Okay, after the bump, you learned that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine. And she says, I'm not sure of the timeline. Just compare those two answers. Prior to the bump, you knew Charlie was being extorted. No, I believe it was afterwards. So it was after the bump. Okay then, after the bump, you learned that Charlie was being extorted. I'm not sure of the timeline. Those two things cannot both be true. You know, I believe it was afterwards. I'm not sure of the timeline. She's not wanting to agree to any of this, potentially thinking there's a trap or something coming along, or she said more than she should, or that she's going to get herself in trouble. And when you learned that Charlie was being extorted by Catherine, you learned that your friend, your best friend, Donna Adelson, was also being forced to write these checks as payments to the killers that were extorting. I don't recall. So all of a sudden, from having this memory of being told what was going on in Japan and that she was being extorted by the killers, all of a sudden, Anne has gone, I don't recall. Anne, on a mission to say as little as possible, but on this one on extortion, I think she gets really, really flustered as to what was happening. That was your podcast exclusive. Let's join up with everyone else. This is Richard Chagrin. This is a friend of Harvey and Donna Adelson's, and he testified to the direct examination. So he was the one that suggested the one-way tickets to Vietnam that Donna and Harvey very suspiciously had bought so that they could leave the country, in their words, to clear their heads, and many people thinking they wanted to leave the country to one with no extradition. Very suspicious they had a one-way ticket, but Richard has the reason why they wanted a one-way ticket. He said a one-way ticket would be cheaper for you guys, so he was the guy that suggested it. However, on cross, something's put to him.
Do you recall giving a deposition? It was by Zoom, but I was present, August 29th, 2024.
Vaguely.
And in that deposition, weren't you asked, so did you make any of the decisions when to travel or how to travel, or were you just the conduit to the technology? And your answer was the conduit for the technology.
Yes.
But today you're saying you're the one that suggested that they fly one way.
Objection, Your Honor, improper impeachment.
Overruled.
Isn't that right?
Well, to me, that's part of being the conduit, just suggesting.
You were there because you were more computer savvy than Harvey or Donna, right?
I was there that day.
Yes, sir. To help with the computer is what you said in the deposition.
Well, once we got there, I was there because my wife had done estate planning for them.
Okay, but what you did in reference to the travel planning was help with the computer.
Yes,
Because you were more computer savvy than these two.
correct.
Okay. But today you're saying you suggested the one-way flight, right?
I just offered my suggestion.
Okay, so this guy here is playing a very similar pattern to what we've seen. And do you notice that the people that Donna has chosen to go up in the stand, they seem to have I don't think they're used to being questioned by authority or having their authority questioned. They don't seem to like it. And how do you think that is playing with the jury? So he is asked by cross-examination, do you recall giving a deposition? It was by Zoom. I was present August 29th, 2024. And he says, vaguely. Once more, all these memories are not very certain when it seems like they might not play into Donna's favour from her friends. Vaguely. And again, I think it's like, don't push me on this one because I'm going to be vague about this. And in that deposition, weren't you asked, so did you make any of the decisions when to travel or how to travel, or were you just the conduit to technology? And your answer was the conduit for the technology. But today you're saying you're the one that suggested they fly one way. There's an objection. And the prosecutor says, isn't that right? And Richard does what we've seen from many of these witnesses. Well, so here comes a explanation, not anything that you're going to expect. I'm not going to answer your question directly. I'm going to give you an explanation or a reason or an excuse, and I'm going to flag that up by starting with, well, to me. So this is a personal definition coming here. This is not the version of conduit that most of us would use. This is just a personal one, which is going to get him off because this is what I meant by conduit. I don't care what everyone else meant by conduit. This is what I mean by conduit. To me, that's part of being the conduit. Just suggesting. Just is there again. Just suggesting. I was just suggesting one way would be cheaper, not, well, you're never coming back. A one-way ticket would be, why get a return? Why don't you just get yourself the one-way ticket? Just suggesting, I think, again, could be hiding more of a conversation that went on about why they had this one-way ticket. You'll notice the technology has disappeared. Part of being the conduit is just suggesting. He doesn't talk about the technology that he was facilitating there, which is what he said in the deposition. He was a conduit to the technology. Technology has disappeared. And by the way, the definition of conduit is a means of transmitting or distributing. So she puts to him, you were there because you were more computer savvy than Harvey or Donna. Right, I was there that day is the question that comes from him. This is the question to a question. I think he's buying himself some thinking time because he realises he's in a bit of a jam. The testimony he's given in court is not quite chiming with the deposition. Yes, sir, to help with the computer. That's what you said in the deposition, is it? And he says, well, once we got there, I was there because my wife had done estate planning for them. Does that answer the question? Once we got there, I suppose it does. But you'll notice now someone's appeared, because before the technology disappeared, now he was there as a we with his wife, I'm presuming, and that's because his wife had done estate planning for them. So this is going all over the place while he tries to make this sit right with the impression that he wants to give, which is that I suggested a one-way ticket would be cheaper, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, but what you did in reference to travel plannings was help with the computer. He says, yes, because you were more computer savvy than these two. He says, correct. But today, you're saying you suggested the one-way flight, right? And he says, yeah, I just offered my suggestion. We have that word just again. Please don't ask any more. I want you to focus only on this thing I've said just. I just offered my suggestion. Another witness whose answers will not be satisfying. So that's Donna Adelson's defence. What did you think of them? Do let me know in the comments if you want. For me, listen, there is a theme with all of these people that Donna has chosen to speak on her behalf. Avoidance of certain things that the prosecutors especially want to bring up, diversion away onto other issues. When they go extra, it's always in Donna's favour. It's always when they want to actually volunteer more than they were asked for. It's always to make Donna look good, and they have a hazy memory when it suits them too. Now, imagine how unsatisfying that was for the jury. Their senses will be working overtime of, why are they avoiding this? Why is she not answering the question? I want an answer to that question that makes me feel like I've heard an answer, an honest answer to that question. And when person after person after person that Donna's chosen to come up does that, that's compounded on the jury. I'm not saying these guys are the reason that Donna was found guilty, because there was a lot more evidence than what we've looked at, but these guys could have helped. But by that avoidance, diversion, that evasion and not answering the questions, I don't think they did anything at all that worked for Donna. And did you spot the theme? Did you spot the theme that all those witnesses we looked at spoke about? It was money. Money was involved in the divorce. Good old Anne, they used WhatsApp and Viber because they were free. It was saving them money, and saving money as well was the reason that Richard gave for the one-way trip. A very rich family, upset over £80,000, but wanting to cut and save wherever they could. The theme was money, and I think that if you look around the whole murder of Dan Markel, I'm not saying that human relations did not play a part in it, but I think money was a very, very big issue with the Adelsons. What do you think? Do let me know in the comments. If you can, you'll find all the links to the socials at neveratruerword.com. Also there, you will find podcasts galore where you can listen to more about the Adelsons or more people on trial or in trials as well, and video versions of that too. And if you want to join the Facebook group to discuss the words with other people who are really into talking about what statements reveal, you'll find that link on neveratruerword.com as well. Charlie Adelson coming soon. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.